VSiN's College Football Tailgate Show, right here on VSiN, the sports betting network, where you get your winners.
Hour 3 of the VSiN College Football Tailgate Show. I'm your host, Tim Murray, live here in Las Vegas, Nevada, as the game's about to kick off across the country. A bunch of good ones in that noon window, and we will be keeping our eyes on all of those contests, including Indiana hosting Nebraska, Louisville taking on Miami. Two best bets for me, taking the dog in both of those, and a hold your nose special. Hold on for dear life. Taking 17 with East Carolina against Army. That game about to get underway as well. Every morning, weekdays, you can catch the VSiN Morning Line. Michael Lombardi, Harrison Sanford, and our next guest, Grace Remington. They give you that fine program. I join it every Friday as well to talk college football, and Grace joins me right now. You could follow her on Twitter at Grace Remy TV. Grace, let's run through a couple of your games, and we will start. It hasn't started yet, so let's just try to sneak this in before they kick it off there in Bloomington. Nebraska at Indiana. We've got a common play here. I took the 7 with the corn when it touched it. It's 6.5. I still would look at it. Obviously, that key number of 7, but I'm curious what Indiana does with a legit defense that they face. So, quick thoughts on Nebraska, Indiana about to kick off.
Well, you were much more patient than I was, Tim, waiting to get that 7. I was a little bit worried the number would get smaller, so I played it at 6.5, but I do make the spread in this one 5.1, so we still have an edge here at the 6.5. You look at Indiana, they're off to a historic start, and it's been so fun to watch them, but they haven't beaten a team power rated inside the top 50 yet. They've played FIU, Western Illinois, UCLA, Charlotte, Maryland, and Northwestern. And those last two games were a lot closer than the final box score showed. Maryland was a one-possession game heading into the fourth quarter. They gave up 400 yards of offense to the Terps. And then Northwestern was a one-possession game about 5 minutes into that fourth quarter, too. Nebraska is just an overtime away from also being 6-0. So you think if both of these teams entered the game undefeated, this big Big Ten showdown probably would have been a much smaller number here. So essentially it's Indiana a little overvalued at this point, Nebraska maybe a little undervalued, and the Huskers will be the toughest front Indiana has faced all season. Their secondary has also done well containing opposing quarterbacks. They rank 15th in EPA per pass allowed. So I'll take the dog here with the point.
Yeah, I'm with you. Indiana, 113th strength of schedule so far. Curtis Rourke's been great. The transfer from Ohio, topped in Big Ten passer rating, yards per attempt, and touchdowns. But I will take the points here with Nebraska. Both of these teams coming off a bye. Worth noting in that Maryland game a couple weeks ago, Maryland closed as a 7.5-point dog at Indiana. Nebraska 6.5. Look, on a neutral, Nebraska, Maryland, it ain't a 1-point spread. So hopefully we get a good effort here from Nebraska. All right, Grace, let's get to the big one of the day. And you've got a unique angle to bet Texas and Georgia. I took the points with Georgia here, took the 4. You can get a better number now, 4.5, 5. I'll probably jump back in and bet it again. Look, Texas has been well-deserved the number 1 team in the country, but I've got my questions. However, what is your way of betting this game tonight, Texas hosting Georgia?
Well, I love first quarter and first half play. So my official play for this game is Texas to win the first quarter, covering a half point on the spread. Georgia starts game slow, and this is not unique to this season. It's a yearly trend at this point, but on the season, they ranked 99th in first quarter points at 3.4. Texas ranks 13th at 9.8. But looking at the full game here, I made Texas a 5-point favorite. I said that on Monday or Tuesday, so it wasn't a surprise to me that the line has moved that way. However, I do think it's notable that once it does reach that 5, we're seeing it bet back down. So there's a clear opinion in the betting market here about where that number should be. But looking at the Bulldogs, we know the defense is not what it has been. They rank 79th in pass rush grade. Now they're going up against the best offensive line in the country with NFL prospects, Kelvin Banks and Cameron Williams. The reason they lost to Bama is because they couldn't bring the pressure on Milroe. So what do you do instead? They're going to have to bring extra men to the box. That could open up opportunities for explosive passing plays. And Texas ranks 5th nationally in passing plays of 20 or 30 yards. Jalen Milroe threw all over that secondary. Mississippi State quarterback Michael Van Buren threw all over it, 300 yards at 8.3 yards per attempt, racking up 31 points against the Georgia Bulldogs. UGA also hasn't really been able to run the ball well. They rank just about average in that, which compared to their standard, is significantly below average. So I think Carson Beck is gonna have to play a perfect game here. And the way you beat him is by pressuring him. Texas can do this. They also have a very improved coverage unit, one of the best in the country. Their defense ranks number 1 in explosives allowed and opponent finishing drives. So all the numbers kind of match up going Texas's way. And I think, this is one of those games you just trust what your eyes tell you. I know everyone wants to say, well, who has Texas really played? But who do you trust more to execute in this position? Which quarterback here? Of course, they've both been on the big stage, but at this point, I like all of the matchups on the Texas side.
All right. She's going first quarter there. So we could both take a victory on that one. Texas gets out to an early lead, and we get a close barn burner. I didn't take any money line, so, hey, Texas by 3. By all means, I don't care. Just let Georgia get the cover here. Grace Remington joining us here on the VSiN College Football Tailgate Show, courtesy of our progressive guest line. Follow her on social media at Grace Remy TV. And, of course, catch her along with Harrison and Michael Lombardi weekday mornings on the VSiN morning line. All right. We've played friendly enough. We're going head-to-head. The Golden Boot tonight. I took 3 with Arkansas. You're rocking with LSU. Give us your rationale on why you're rolling with the Bayou Bengals in Fayetteville tonight.
Okay, so I totally get why people think Arkansas is undervalued at this point. They're essentially 2 plays away from being 6-0, and LSU has gotten lucky in those Ole Miss and South Carolina wins. But I do make the number in this game 4.7, so there is a slight edge to the LSU side. I actually played them at -1.5. That number is gone. I don't really feel comfortable playing the 2.5 now, but if you can get a 2, go ahead for that. So the problem with LSU's offense, no ground game, but their offensive line is making up for it by giving Garrett Nussmeier time to throw. This O-line ranks 13th in pass blocking, 13th in pressure rate allowed, 4th in sacks allowed, 4th in tackles for loss allowed. And Nussmeier is a very serviceable quarterback when he has that time to throw. Against Ole Miss, which is one of the best defensive fronts in the country, I think the problem in that game was on the Ole Miss side. They lay off the pressure and drop into coverage on 3rd and 4th down, and that's what helped Nuss lead that game-tying and ultimately game-winning drive. The thing for Arkansas is they have no pass rush, and they're bad in coverage. On the offensive side of the ball for the Hogs, how mobile can Taylon Green be coming back from injury? He's facing an LSU front that has a top 5 pressure rate in the country. Arkansas ranks bottom 5 in pressures allowed. The gripe against this Tiger secondary in recent years has been they've been giving up the big play. However, against Ole Miss, they only allowed Jackson Dart to complete 3 of 12 passes thrown 20 air yards. And I think it's because they found something with their scheme. LSU had been running man coverage on almost 50% of its defensive plays. Against Ole Miss, that number dropped to just under 30%. So will they continue that against Arkansas? TBD. But hey, let's just root for a 2-point game here so we can both win, Tim, and then everyone is happy.
Easy enough, right? Right there in the middle there, 26-24. Let's see if we can make that happen. Right now, LSU, a 2.5-point favorite. Every time it does touch 3, it does seem to get bet down. All right, Grace, one more before we get on out of here. A game that we haven't touched on, so I'm glad you have an opinion on it, because I looked at this game as a situational angle, maybe to look to bet against South Carolina. However, the betting market seems to like the Gamecocks here, as the South Carolina Gamecocks have moved around a 1-point favorite. Pick 'em. What do you make Oklahoma and South Carolina, and is there a bet to be had?
So if you're listening on Saturday morning, you're going to get the better number here. Unlike me, I played Oklahoma at -1.5 because I made them a 5-point favorite in this game. So, hey, congrats to everyone who actually waited this time. But 2 great defensive teams here, 2 offensively challenged teams, to say the least. So I think it comes down to quarterback play and turnovers. No team has allowed more sacks in the country than South Carolina at 26. They also rank 113th in turnovers lost because Lenore Sellers has a fumbling problem. South Carolina is a run-heavy team. They've had to rely on these explosive plays, but Oklahoma defense can shut it down. They rank 17th in pass rush and 58th in coverage. This Oklahoma offense obviously has been a disaster to start the season, but they held a players-only meeting Sunday hopefully getting everyone on the same page. I think Oklahoma is the better team at protecting the ball here. Their quarterback can make more plays. Michael Hawkins Jr. has massive upside as a runner. And pace of play should be fast in this one. Both teams rank top 50 in tempo, which gives us more possessions here to cover the spread in what should be a really close game. So I'll take the Sooners plus the 1.5.
She is Grace Remington, one of the hosts of the new morning show here on VSiN's Morning Line. Her, Harrison Sanford, and Michael Lombardi, weekdays 7 to 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Grace, always appreciate the insight. Best of luck with your bets today.
Yes, thanks, Tim. Great to hear from you, and happy game day.
Yes, indeed it is, and we've got games underway. Let's run through them real quickly. Oh, man. I knew it would be painful. Army already on the board. Whoo, buddy. All right, come on, East Carolina. We can do it. 7-0 Army, the first touchdown of the day as the Black Knights ranked in the top 25, them and Navy both in the top 25 for the first time together since 1960. Other games going on, no score in Nebraska, Indiana, no score Auburn, Missouri, and all the other games happening here in that early window. So your first touchdown of the day, a touchdown pass from Bryson Daly. Whoo, buddy. Gonna have to hold on for dear life in that one. We'll get you updated on all the other games that are going on across the college football world, as well as we'll hear plenty of sound for the biggest games still to come today. It is VSiN's College Football Tailgate Show.
Time. There's nothing more valuable. It's what drives everyone to make the most of every moment. We celebrate living large in the now. In a city where time disappears, we create experiences that electrify the soul and memories that will last forever. We go big, we go all night, and here, everyone is invited. So get loose and get loud.
This is Circa. You'll have the time of your life.
Coming up Monday on Follow the Money, we recap a wild weekend in football. On Monday Night Football doubleheader, well, we know who's meeting in the World Series. Follow the Money weekdays, 4 to 7 Eastern on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Want to see who at VSiN is on a hot streak? Go to VSiN.com/picks to see all the selections and weekly leaderboard of VSiN hosts, writers, and guests. Become a VSiN Pro subscriber and get every pick sent to your inbox daily. Just head to VSiN.com/pro.
So, Paulie, have you had a chance to read the VSiN Daily yet?
Yeah, came in at 3 a.m. What's Bill doing up that late?
Well, rumor has it, it starts off with a 12-hour meditation session.
Then he just pours himself over film and live TV, really focusing and taking it all in. Bill's in with the biggest insiders, talking trade secrets, strategies, the whole nine, absorbing the info.
And then and only then can the writing process begin.
In Las Vegas, Bill's late night becomes your early morning. Wake up to the very latest betting insights in your inbox with the VSiN Daily. Sign up for free at vsin.com/newsletter.
watching VSiN's College Football Tailgate Show right here on VSiN, the sports betting network where you get your winners.
We are underway in that noon Eastern window time. I am Tim Murray, your host, live here in Las Vegas, as you can see over my shoulder. For those of you watching with us on YouTube TV or wherever you may be tuned in on this lovely Saturday, the games are rolling here, and we'll get you updated on all of the games across the country. Early touchdown for Arizona State. So we saw the market go against the Sun Devils, and they take an early 7-0 lead, as does UCLA in their cross-country travels to Rutgers, and also Army into the end zone for a score. So keep you updated on all of the games that are happening in that noon Eastern window. Still plenty of monster games to hit on as the day goes on here on VSiN, including the biggest game of the day. Number 1, Texas hosting number 5, Georgia. Right now, looking at that line across the board, Georgia sits as a 4.5-point underdog. There's a 4 out there at the Westgate Superbook, so a little bit of money coming in, it looks like, on the Georgia Bulldogs. First time since 2011 that Georgia has been an underdog. Kirby Smart, he is the head coach, of course, of Georgia. More of a defensive mind, right? Was on that Alabama staff for many, many years as their D coordinator. And he was asked earlier this week about the challenges of coaching against a Steve Sarkisian offense.
And they do a great job of putting you in conflict in terms of run, pass, play action, turn your back to the ball. I mean, they can take shots. They got really good wideouts to take shots with. I think they lost a couple backs maybe at preseason camp, and I thought, like, okay, well, they're not going to have – well, these 2 backs they got are really good. And I'm like, man, I'm watching them against Mississippi State, who I'd seen them against last week while we were watching Mississippi State. I was really impressed. And then against Oklahoma, they even got better. So there's not like there's these weaknesses. They're big, physical up front on defense and offense. They're built around the offensive and defensive lines. And that when you look at his record – and you say, look at his record while he's been there, every year it's improved. Well, the trenches improved every year. And they're for real in the trenches. They've got really good players, and they're built like an SEC team. And it's hard to prepare for him because he knows what he's doing, offensively.
Yeah, and we know the offense is legit. It was interesting what Chip Brown said earlier today, and I'm going to post it on social media here at Tim Murray in a moment, which was Quinn Ewers and how he just looked a bit off last week against Oklahoma in that game. Just the 5th meeting all time between Georgia and Texas. And the last time they met, Sam Ehlinger there at the Sugar Bowl letting everyone know that they are back. Well, they're back now. That is for sure. Playoff last year, number 1 team in the country this year. Steve Sarkisian, he knows that, hey, the schedule, it is what it is. 82nd in strength of schedule right now. The Michigan game doesn't look as daunting as maybe we thought it was going to be preseason. This is the big boy. This is the test to tell us who Texas is, and Coach Sark knows that.
I have a ton of respect for Coach Smart and the job that he's done at Georgia. They've kind of somewhat been the standard of college football here now for the last 6-7 years. I think they've been to 7 SEC championship games. They won 3 in a row, back-to-back national champs, competed for a 3rd. And so, they've recruited really well. They've got great schemes. They're really well coached. I know the moment won't be too big for them coming into DKR. But with that being said, we need DKR to be rocking. We need to make sure that we've got a home field advantage, and one that our fans have done a tremendous job all year. And I think to the point I made to the players, we need to continue to stay enamored with us and what we need to do and focus on the task at hand, and not get caught up in what you guys are talking about or anybody else is talking about. It's not what other people say. It's actually about what we do. It's about our action, and we can control what we can control.
Can't wait to watch that one tonight. We talked to Mike Sanford a little bit earlier on in the program, and, he said that stadium, not a massive rocking environment normally. Now, worth noting, as we have this graphic up, the last 10 top 5 teams to visit Austin, and 2 years ago was number 1 Alabama. Remember that game? Texas was unranked, and They lost by 1. It was a really impressive performance by Texas as a 21-point underdog. I know that it was written about by Bill Conley earlier this week, the time that Texas, as the number 1 team in the country, played a top 5 team, and that was Arkansas back in 1970, and they won that game 42-7. 2006, number 1 Ohio State came in to Austin. Texas was number 2 in the country, and Ohio State won that game 24-7. Another big SEC game this week with playoff implications, not necessarily the team at home, but the team that's playing on the road. That would be LSU, number 8 in the country, open up the season with a loss against USC. Since then, unblemished. Do they trip up today against Arkansas? Sam Pittman, we've talked about his strength as an underdog, but he knows facing a quarterback like Garrett Nussmeier, who was phenomenal last week, will not be easy.
He knows where his pocket is. He's good in the pocket. As this may sound, they want to throw the football, but we have to stop their running game. I mean, we have to. They can't have both of them, or we'll be in trouble. They got a few plays in the running game. Got outside of contain, went for 20 or 30 yards a couple times. We have to get them. They'll want to be in 5 wides, but we need to get them to throw in the football, and hopefully, we can pick a few of them and get to them and get some negative plays. But that's when Ole Miss was having success. They won first down basically, and when they didn't, they didn't have as much success.
7 o'clock Eastern on ESPN, LSU and Arkansas. It got back to 3 earlier today, market-wide sitting at 2.5. I took 3 with Arkansas. I still would look a little bit on the money line, but we'll see if that gets back to 3 to grab the 3 with Woo Pig Suey there in that particular spot. So Arkansas, LSU, a night game. Also a night game in Morgantown, West Virginia. I went with West Virginia last week. It did not work out all that well. Iowa State getting the win and the cover. And now West Virginia, again, is a home dog, catching 2.5 at home against Kansas State. Another home opportunity for West Virginia facing 17th-ranked Kansas State. Chris Kleiman on the challenges that West Virginia will pose with a unique offense led by Garrett Green.
They run the ball, and they run the ball really effectively with 3 different players. Both tailbacks are really good and can beat you inside or outside, and they're 2 maybe different size backs, but they both run inside, they both run outside. And then Green's he's one of my favorite kids to watch play. Now, I don't know if I'm going to really like watching him on Saturday night, but he's a competitor, and he makes plays. He makes plays with his arm. He makes plays with his legs. Not afraid to run inside. He'll cut back. He's not going to run out of bounds or slide very often. Been impressed with him. I think maybe it was his first start against us in 22, somewhere around there, and I was impressed with him then. And then, I think he's taken probably about every snap since then. And I know that Neil has been really impressed with him, and you can tell his energy sparks their team.
Going to be quite the test for Kansas State coming off of the emotional win last weekend against Colorado. DJ Giddens was able to run all over Colorado last Saturday night. Avery Johnson very much bottled up, a little banged up too. I bet his player prop in rushing, I don't normally venture in the player prop world, took some over on Avery Johnson rushing, did not get home. He did find the end zone though early on in that game, so we'll see. Kansas State heads on the road to West Virginia. Will the Dogs be barking? I was surprised. Now, Matt Humans holds a bit of a grudge, and I was surprised that West Virginia wasn't on his card this weekend. I took him last weekend, catching 3 against Iowa State. That one did not come home. I know he liked them against Penn State earlier this year. That didn't come home. Maybe third time's the charm. Haven't bet it yet. But West Virginia, could they sneak up and grab 17th-ranked Kansas State? All right, one more soundbite to get to. Billy Napier, as he will have to turn the reins over to the freshman DJ Lagway full-time now that Graham Mertz is out for the season.
Explosive arm talent. I think the ability to escape, extend, the running element. Yeah, man, I think ultimately you've had a chance to observe him play. There's nothing that he can't do. I think he's capable of doing. He's proven over time that he can operate all the situational stuff, all the protection stuff, all the combos. He can handle it.
Kentucky, Florida. We've seen Kentucky money hit the market this week. They're out to a 2-point favorite. Are the Wildcats coming off their loss last week to Vanderbilt. Sunbelt Billy, man, when you look at that schedule, and we talked about it all offseason long, boy, do they need this one. After the bye, it's Georgia, Texas, LSU, Ole Miss before they wrap up the season against Florida State. All right, we'll get you updated on the games going on across the country, as well as some under-the-radar teams that we will touch on as well.
They're off.
Sports betting game with VSiN's exclusive betting splits. Stay ahead with real-time market trends and track bet percentages on any matchup, then uncover the edge by comparing them to the amount of bets placed to find out where the sharp money is headed. Upgrade to VSiN Pro to access betting splits, live odds, line moves, power ratings, and in-depth game analysis. Go to VSiN.com/pro to join VSiN, the sports betting network.
This is VSiN, the sports betting network.
watching VSiN's College Football Tailgate Show right here on VSiN, the sports betting network where you get your winners.
To the house. That is what Isaac Brown just did for Louisville. 43 yards to the crib. 7-3 Louisville lead over Miami midway through the first quarter. Clemson leading Virginia 3-0, but Virginia driving that one late in the first quarter. Indiana struck first. Justice Ellison into the end zone. A touchdown run to give the Hoosiers a 7-0 lead. Much to my chagrin, here come the Army Black Knights again, driving against ECU. All tied up, UCLA and Rutgers at 7, as well as Arizona State and Cincinnati. So busy opening slate here for me. Best bets on Louisville. Also best bets on Nebraska, and holding my nose against Army. So we will see how these first games go through. Hey, if you're looking to take your betting to the next level by playing the ponies on First Bet, from Santa Anita and Gulfstream to the Kentucky Derby and Preakness, First Bet has you covered. Sign up at firstbet.com. That's the number one, stbet.com. Use the promo code VSiN200 to claim a 20% rebate for your first 60 days, up to $200. Once again, the website is firstbet.com. All right, I wanted to hit on a couple of under-the-radar teams before we get to a little hurry-up and run through some games in the afternoon window. How about Virginia Tech? So Virginia Tech, I think, is under the radar. And I saw Ryan Kramer from the Sports Gambling Podcast repping his VT stuff, leaving Circa early this morning. And I said, man, your Hokies kind of sleeping on the Hokies right now. Remember all the hype coming into the year regarding Virginia Tech? Some jabroni out there took a Kyron Drones 150-1. Oh, that was me. 150-1 to win the Heisman Trophy. They're 2-1 in the ACC. Their loss came to Miami on that last-second Hail Mary. Was it or was it not? They have losses to Vandy, Rutgers, and Miami, but they host Clemson on November 9th. And if they win that game in Blacksburg, watch out. This team could make it to the ACC championship. Obviously, a lot to still play out, but at 28-1, Virginia Tech kind of a under-the-radar type of team that I would keep your eye on after a nice performance on Thursday night against Boston College. Tulane, there's been so much talk about Boise State, rightfully so, UNLV, Army, Navy, to be the G5 representative in the college football playoff. How about the Green Wave? Their odds, believe it or not, are the second shortest out there in the betting market to make the playoff. They have losses to Kansas State and Oklahoma, but John Summerall, the former head coach of Troy, he's got this Tulane team playing some good football. They play Rice later today, where they're a massive favorite. They have North Texas on the road next week. They go to Navy at the end of November, and then they host Memphis before maybe a showdown against Army. They've got plenty of opportunities against the perceived best teams in the AAC. I think from a power rating standpoint, Tulane is the best team in that conference. Tulane, I don't think a lot of people are talking about the Green Wave and their opportunity that could be out there to win the AAC and to make the college football playoff, especially if Boise State were to stub their toe next Friday night against UNLV. And then finally, I want to mention Texas Tech. Do you know that Texas Tech is undefeated in the Big 12? Yeah, they're 3-0 in the Big 12. They went up to the Palouse, and they got smoked by Washington State earlier this year. But they're 3-0 in the Big 12. Now, I don't know if I trust Joey McGuire's squad, and, this showdown with Baylor today is kind of weird with a point spread, pretty shockingly short. But you look at Texas Tech, wins now over Arizona State, Cincinnati, and Arizona. So they wasn't like they were playing nobodies. Challenge is still ahead, no doubt, for the boys in Lubbock. But I don't think many people know that Texas Tech is unbeaten, 9-1 right now to win the Big 12. BYU winning last night doesn't certainly help out their chances, but they do get the win. BYU did late last night in a bit of a crazy finish there between BYU and Oklahoma State. All right, let's pick up the pace. Let's run through as many games as possible here, and we'll start with a game starting in 10 minutes. South Carolina taking on Oklahoma. You just heard from Grace Remington. She likes Oklahoma in this spot. I don't really have a dog in the fight. Looking at the point spread, Oklahoma a pick'em here at Circa, total 40.5. Are they going to get some health back? Deion Burks apparently is a game-time decision, so we will keep our eyes on that one. But I thought this was a tricky spot for South Carolina after having an opportunity to beat Alabama. Now you got to go on the road to Norman, but the market disagrees, and they've bet South Carolina to a small favorite at most shops. Here at Circa, it's sitting at pick. All right, that 3:30 Eastern window. Let's go Notre Dame and Georgia Tech. Notre Dame now out to a 14-point favorite. Notre Dame last week off a bye beat Stanford 49-7. Injury note for Notre Dame here. Benjamin Morrison, their future pro cornerback and All-American, he's done for the year. Another injury to the Irish defense. I don't necessarily think they need him today because the big news here, Haynes King is out for Georgia Tech. That's why we sit at 14 in this one. Talked to Matt Humans about this game earlier today as well as on the VSiN College Football Betting Podcast. No play for him now that Haynes King is officially out for the Rambling Wreck. Also in this 3:30 Eastern window, a game, to be honest, we have not talked about a whole lot, and that's a top 25 showdown between Michigan and Illinois. Michigan has been getting bet like crazy, which makes you think a little bit, right? This game out to 4.5, 5. I thought maybe a dog play for Matt Humans and others who like to play those dog spots. Matt mentioned that he's taken some money line on Michigan. They've turned the reins over to Jack Tuttle. The quarterback situation has been less than ideal for Michigan, starting the year with Davis Warren, turning it over to Alex Orji. Now it's Jack Tuttle. I do think of the three, Jack Tuttle gives this Michigan team the best opportunity to win. Illinois, how about last weekend, blowing out Purdue up 27-3, and then it was a massive comeback for the Boilermakers, almost winning that game outright, losing 50-49. So curious about the line move here. We talked about a couple of games last week where the line just kind of spooked me. The game that came to mind was Pitt and Cal, where that number just kind of stuck at 3, and that's why ultimately I stayed off of that game, and thankfully I did because Pitt won, but only won by 2. Michigan, Illinois, that game spooks me. It's out to 4.5, 5 when you would think Illinois has an opportunity to be a live dog here, especially the way that they play. They want to keep it going slow. I think Luke Altmaier could be in store for a tough day against that Michigan defense. How about Alabama and Tennessee, one of the biggest games of the day? Is it an elimination game? I wouldn't say necessarily elimination, but we've heard from a bunch of folks on the show that do like Alabama. They're a 3-point favorite here against Tennessee. Nico Iamaleava has just looked a bit off, no doubt, these past couple of weeks, and his number in the Heisman market continues to rise and soar, and I would say it's good time to light my 18-1 preseason ticket. Should have listened to myself. No really need to bet a Heisman in the preseason, and Nico being just that. We'll see if Jalen Milroe can get it rolling on the ground here for Alabama. One thing I worry about with Alabama moving forward, not only their defense, but I also think about Jalen Milroe and the durability. He has got a ton of carries already so far this year, so that's something to keep an eye on there. Kalen DeBoer, the Bear, Chris Felica pointed this out on social media. In games between -7 and +7, in that window of 14 points, he's 10-2 ATS as a Power 4 coach. Injury note worth noting here in Cal NC State, as Cal will be without Jaden Ott at home. 3:30 Eastern kickoff against NC State. NC State has been a very big disappointment so far this year. Market moving a little bit against Cal, understandably so, without Jaden Ott, who unfortunately has been dealing with a bunch of injuries so far this year. Cal lay a 9, 9.5, even an 8.5 out there on that one. Also in that 3:30 window, we heard from Chuck Esposito from Stations here earlier in the program about some lopsided ticket counts. Navy off to a 6-0 start. The midshipmen hosting Charlotte today. Navy coming off a bye. Charlotte coming off a bye as well. Last time out, they beat East Carolina 55-24. This number was at 17, has ticked down to 16, 16.5. I took a little on Charlotte at 17. We'll see if Navy continues just to blow teams out. Perfect to the over are the midshipmen this year, 5-0 to the over. And then lastly, as we wrap up here, a little no huddle. USC at Maryland. Speaking of the state of Maryland, you got a game at 3:30 there in Annapolis. Over in College Park, Maryland, the Terps will be hosting USC. The number sits 7.5. Gosh, I am so tempted to take Maryland here in this spot. Maybe I'll do it and hold my nose and take the Terps in a brutal situational spot. What's the mindset of USC moving forward? They are not going to make the playoff now. They've lost 3 games this year, all in relatively heartbreaking fashion. Last week it was to Penn State. How does this USC team respond to that loss? And now you got to travel across the country to take on the Terps. I could be interested potentially here in Maryland catching 7.5. All right, we've got our first down. Let's wrap up the show. It is the VSiN College Football Tailgate Show.
In the heart of downtown Las Vegas, a sports oasis awaits. Stadium Swim, the ultimate outdoor amphitheater, built for the ultimate sports fan, with a colossal screen that brings the game closer than ever. Reserve a daybed, private cabana, or lounge in the center of it all. 6 pools to dive into as the game heats up. And the best part, there's never an off-season. Open 365 days a year. Stadium Swim, it's always spectator season.
Sean Green and Ryan Kramer bring an energetic approach to sports betting to keep you entertained while sweating your bets on the Sports Gambling Podcast Live at VSiN.
There is something to the idea of the smart teams might be zagging. You see all the best offenses in the National Football League have a fullback.
If you like defense, if you like football, how can you not be okay with 2 high safeties?
Join Sean and Ryan every Friday night at 11 p.m. Eastern on the Sports Gambling Podcast Live at VSiN, right here on the Sports Betting Network.
watching VSiN's College Football Tailgate Show right here on VSiN, the sports betting network where you get your winners.
We're underway, a busy Saturday, week 8 of the college football season. I'm your host, Tim Murray, putting a bow on the VSiN College Football Tailgate Show. Thanks to all who have joined the program as we continue to get you ready for all of the games going on later today. If you're wanting updated action, live betting opportunities, Wes Reynolds and Ben Wilson coming up next with Live Bet Saturday. Big spot here. Nebraska going for it on 4th and 1 inside the 15-yard line of Indiana. Nebraska +7, one of my best bets, and a timeout has been called there by Matt Rule. So we'll see what he decides to do. Quick updates before we get you some final analysis from across the country. We do have another touchdown in the Miami-Louisville game. Cam Ward, producer Dustin was talking about a beautiful touchdown pass from Cam Ward just a little while ago as Miami takes a 10-7 lead, and now Louisville punting the ball away. So less than ideal for me on that one as Louisville is back on defense. We mentioned a fourth down opportunity here for Nebraska and Indiana. 4th and 1 from the Indiana 12-yard line. East Carolina not really helping me out at all. So Army may be on their way to yet another cover. This team seems to be an absolute runaway freight train. Their strength of schedule has been laughable, but they have been dominating everybody in their path, and they lead 10-0 over East Carolina early on in the second quarter. Missouri and Auburn, Mizzou with a 3-0 lead, that one early in the second quarter. And also keep your eye on this one. How about Virginia taking on Clemson? The Wahoos down in Death Valley. It's 3-3. Virginia driving in that one early on in the second quarter. So a lot of action to keep you updated on. Live Bet Saturday coming up next here on VSiN to get you ready for continue to have you bet a loaded up Saturday of college football. We spent a lot of time on Texas and Georgia. I'll give you some final analysis on that game here before we bid farewell. But another big one in the SEC is Tennessee and Alabama. 3:30 Eastern kickoff in Tennessee. And Jalen Milroe, he has been an absolute star this year. A little erratic at times through the air, but he is talking about an opportunity going down to Knoxville and trying to knock off those Volunteers.
What I remember about Knoxville is that, communication number one when it comes to being effective in the game. Controlling your controllables is definitely important when it comes to, staying ahead of the sticks, and also just controlling the game through your preparation. I think that's so important because, although it's going to be a lot of, it's going to be hectic, as far as the crowd, they want to be involved in the game. It's all about the preparation aspect of it so that you just reflect on your level of training and not rise to the occasion. So I think that's going to be important for us to move forward throughout the whole game is through our preparation and how we can just key into our reads and key in through our communication, and then also just taking the feedback from our coaches throughout the game.
Can't wait for that one, 3:30 Eastern. I want to get you updated real quickly. That 4th and 1 led to a turnover for Nebraska. How about this? It has just been disgusting to be a Nebraska fan. From 2017 to 2023, Nebraska had a negative 45 turnover margin, worst in the Power 4 by 17 turnovers. In their 5-1 start this year, Nebraska +6 in the turnover margin, that courtesy of Chris Felica, but they turn it over against Indiana. They get inside the red zone and come away with no points. So not ideal there for anyone backing Nebraska. Ideal for those who laid the points with Indiana, as Indiana leading 7-0, and the first quarter has come to a close there in Bloomington. Speaking of that Tennessee contest, Nico Iamaleava has struggled a bit, and I've joked on this show that might as well light that Heisman future that I had on fire, as his performances these past couple of weeks have been less than spectacular. Josh Heupel, his thoughts on his young signal caller.
You've heard me say this, you got to play the next play independently, the next week independently too. We started extremely fast. We have the turnover. get behind the chains, a couple times there in first quarter, early second quarter, with penalties, some self-inflicted wounds, things that we can control and be smarter in. I thought for a second, maybe, just offensively, we weren't playing with the same aggressiveness that we came out early in the football game with. For us, settling in, we got a bunch of guys that have played at a high level and have made plays. And Nico's played well. He hasn't played his best football the last couple of weeks. Let's go prepare and practice and go play the next game, the next play with an aggressive mentality. And there's a lot of things that he did well in the football game too. So just got to continue to grow.
Alabama has won 16 of the last 17 matchups against Tennessee. Tennessee getting that win 2 years ago in that thriller at Neyland Stadium, 52-49, when Hendon Hooker was there, and they got to light up those cigars. So, interesting one. Matt Humans, by the way, a best bet for him. He did lay the 3 with Alabama here. You look at Tennessee so far, their defense has been more of the story than their offense. You think Josh Heupel and offense, I should say, but the defense has been tremendous this year. And I bet Oklahoma a couple weeks back, and the Oklahoma offense, now Jackson Arnold was a disaster, but you got to give credit to Tennessee certainly for the way they performed in that contest. So Tennessee and Alabama, 3:30 Eastern kickoff. Another SEC game that I will be on is Arkansas and LSU. I'm riding with Woo Pig Sooie in this spot. Arkansas right now, just double-checking where we are from a market standpoint. They are a 2.5-point underdog. Might get back to 3, so if you haven't gotten involved yet and you do want to back the dog, I would be patient. You might have an opportunity to grab the 3 here with Arkansas, as right now Circa sits at a juiced 2.5, so we'll see how this one plays out. Taylon Green, how healthy will he be? That certainly is a big concern there, as he was unable to finish Arkansas's victory 2 weeks ago over Tennessee. Worth noting, and Matt Grill mentioned this, that maybe this is a spot where you're buying high on Arkansas. Matt Grill of DraftKings Sportsbook. Yeah, that's fair. You think back to 2 weeks ago when Arkansas won against Tennessee, they were a 6-point dog, and now they're a 2.5-point dog. So you certainly seem like you're buying at a very high price on Arkansas, but situationally, it is a tricky one for LSU coming off of that big victory over Ole Miss last week. Stormed the field, win in overtime. I'll take Woo Pig Sooie here. Sam Pittman off a bye week. Before we recap my best bets, let's take a look at what producer Dustin's got rolling here for his favorite plays of the week here. And I know that he has a couple common plays that I am on as well, and I have misplaced his selections for the day. Oh, there we go. Thank you, Dustin. He saw his host struggling. He is on Indiana, so we are head-to-head there in this spot, and I would say I'm going to try to mush him. His side is off to a good start. Also, he is on Louisville. Well, we are both on that, and we are not off to a good start, as Miami has scored again. Not ideal there. He took the 3 with Tennessee, and then he is taking the dog in the Houston Cougars plus 6.5 at Kansas. A field goal up and good, as Auburn has tied up Missouri 3-3 early in the second quarter. Mentioned Miami now up 17-7 over Louisville. It's funny. I mentioned this on the podcast with Humans, which was last year. Louisville looked pretty pedestrian in a win over NC State on the road, and then they came back and beat Notre Dame in a big spot. We stayed off of that game. Well, I had said that Louisville had looked pedestrian these past couple of weeks. That is fair, and right now Miami is making them pay as they are going up and down the field, 17-7 right now. Miami on top of Louisville there. So it has been an impressive performance so far out of the gates here for the Louisville Cardinals. All right, recapping my best bets here for this evening. I am going with Woo Pig Sooie. Going to take the points with Arkansas. I think the 3s will emerge here shortly. In this opening window, it has not gotten off to an ideal start, as I took 7 with Nebraska, took 4.5 with Louisville, and also on East Carolina against Army, as I joked, trying to catch the falling knife and trying to figure out a way to go against Army. Apparently, Army is unbeatable, and you can't beat them. You can't bet against them because they're already up 17-0 on East Carolina. Absolutely unbelievable what we're seeing from the Army Black Knights. Arkansas later tonight. Hopefully that is one that we can bring on home. And I haven't gotten there yet, but I know Maryland is one that it just keeps on popping to me and looking at as well. Make sure to head over to VSiN.com. You can check out the best bets from the Circa Friday Football Invitational. I'll give you a couple. 6 contestants used Arkansas plus the 3 over LSU, and 4 contestants used Georgia plus the 5 over Texas. That is the best bet for me as well. Thanks to Chip Brown. Thanks to Mike Sanford, Matt Humans, Chuck Esposito, and Grace Remington. Thanks, producer Dustin, everyone else behind the scenes as well. Coming up next, Live Bet Saturday, hosted by Ben Wilson and Wes Reynolds. Later on tonight, Ready, Set, Bet with Matt Brown and Mike Somich. I'm Tim Murray. This has been the VSiN College Football Tailgate Show.
VSiN's got you covered for the start of the season with our football special. For 100